I'd like to welcome you to the council meeting for Tuesday the 19th of December and advise you, of course, that the it's being recorded. Here comes Chalice, terrific. And I'd like to acknowledge that the land we meet on today is the traditional lands of the Kaurna people and to respect their spiritual relationship with their country. We also acknowledge the Kaurna people as the custodians of the Adelaide region and that their cultural and heritage beliefs still isn't. And read you the council pledge. We seek wisdom and understanding as we face the duties of our united task, praying for the peace and prosperity of our city. Thank you. Let me see. I advise that the plenty here tonight because the staff party for the youth corps staff is this afternoon. And probably still going. I did ask him where his dedication was to the cause. He's working on it right now, he's sure. The declarations by members of a conflict of interest, are there any declarations tonight?
Just wanted to clarify, an interest but not a conflict. I was a member of the Trambarn Alliance, but I'm not holder or involved in anything to do with Trambarn.
Not an office holder?
No, and I'm not involved with them. I stepped back from them when I knew they were involved.
Just to clarify, do they have a formal membership other than the executive? Does anybody know?
They're not incorporated,
no.
And they don't have a membership per se.
I was just going to say have recently become incorporated. Thank you for that.
No.
Yeah, I think it's only recent.
At any rate, that could be because I'm not involved.
Okay, so not an executive, not a member. I'm not sure. Nothing to record. Anyone else any conflicts to note? No, that being the case. On leave, we have nil apologies, nil confirmation of minutes from the ordinary meeting of council on Tuesday the 28th and the special council meeting for Tuesday the 5th to be taken as read and confirmed as a true record.
So
Would you speak to it? We'll have a seconder. Barnett, would you speak to it? Any further debate? All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Item 5, the mayor's report is as tabled. Any questions? Councillor Harris.
I was going to move it, then make my statement.
It's been moved. Anyone interfere with progress? Do you wish to speak to it?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for doing all these things for us during the year, and you're a very busy man. But I just want to point out 3 things with no comment, because later on I'm going to ask a question in the appropriate place. In the activities, point 1, interview with the advertiser re Prospect Fast Wi-Fi. Further down, photo shoot promoting Prospect Wi-Fi. And about 5 from the bottom, interview with Tom Mann, Radio Adelaide re Prospect Wi-Fi. Just thought I'd mention that and move it as it is. But I will have questions when they're appropriate.
Thank you. I've just checked that is what happened, so that's good, thank you. Councillor Lee is second. Do you wish to speak to it? Any further debate? All those in favour? Against is carried unanimously. Thank you. Verbal reports from council representatives. Are there any verbal reports? There being none. Petitions nil. Deputations nil. Motions on notice. We have 3. Haven't had this many for ages. Okay, so item 9.1, Councillor Mark Stanton, environmental impact of speed humps.
Am I required to read that as the protocol, isn't it?
The governance manager would like you to read it, but I'm advised that I can't pin you to the floor and make you read it.
No, I'm happy to. I'd like to report to be provided for a brief literature review on how much extra fuel vehicles use as near as practical whilst traversing speed humps. And then this information to be used to determine as near as practical the total amount of extra CO2 or CO2 equivalent that the speed humps of Prospect are contributing to our atmosphere during a calendar year. And this report to be presented to Council by March 2018, which I'm hoping will sort of coincide with the conversation and the workshops that we're going to have with the 40 kilometre an hour speed limit stuff. That's the plan of March. So if that's not going to happen, is it? Yeah. Okay.
That was a question around the chair. Carry on.
Okay. it's, I'm going to take your indulgence here a bit and just explain what I want to do with all this. It's been said that the speed humps of Britain have the same carbon footprint of the entire population of Fiji, which is a pretty staggering claim, and it's based on a study that was conducted by Britain's peak motoring body, which is the AA, which is basically their form of the RAA. And in that study, they topped a car full of fuel and then drove it around Millbrook testing ground at a set speed for a set number of laps. They then installed some speed humps and did exactly the same thing again. What they found was that the difference between the no humps and the humps version was a staggering 46% of increase in fuel consumption. And with this fuel consumption increase came a carbon emission increase of exactly the same amount. I think these figures should come to a shock to any councillor who install these devices as part of a traffic management program, because every time we say yes to one of these calming devices, we're actively supporting a reduced quality of breathable air for the residents in those streets. We're about to head into conversations regarding our local local area traffic management. So I think now is the perfect time to put some science and data behind our decisions. What I'm asking the staff to do is to locate some of these studies and draw out some of the figures so we can apply these to our own situation. Primarily, if they can drill down to a per hump, per car, per carbon emission amount. So if they can figure out how much extra every car uses going every hump in every time, then what we can do is that we can extrapolate out this data, multiply it by the number of vehicles that we already have, and it will give us the carbon footprint for these devices. This can then be reported by Street Ward or in total, or we can use it every time we do one of these studies. Everything that we do in this space has two sides on the ledger. If we reduce traffic volumes by installing calming devices, we increase emissions. There's no way of getting around that. But that figure has never been part of any of our equations. Not one consultant study that I've seen in this area has included an environmental impact study. It's something I believe that needs to happen because it is a part of the process. We just tend to gloss over it. And it's not only the emissions that come out of the back of the car. That black stuff that you find on your mag wheels when you wash it every couple of weeks or month or whatever, that stuff that has come from off your brake pads, floated in the air and landed on the wheels. But a lot of it goes into the atmosphere and is breathed by people. There was a few keyboard warriors after last month's report looking at the 40-kilometre-hour speed limits, looking for some science behind the decision. And I think it's time that we provide some of that science so we can actually counter what people say. And it seems to me every time we have someone, every time we have a resident say something about do something in my street, we don't have any science to say why not. And I think that'll provide it. These installed devices are part of a conscious decision we make for our streets. We have control over the emissions they create, and I think it's time we started taking some responsibility for it as well. And I hope you support this motion for a report. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Deputy Mayor Group, wish to speak to it?
Look, just briefly, I think Councillor Stanton's covered all the main issues that you want to bring to the attention of the elected members. Look, I think this would be a really good bit of information that links in well with our conversation about traffic overall. I'm not sure whether I'm convinced one way or the other about speed humps and use of, or I guess, CO2 emissions. I just don't know the answer. It's not an area of expertise for me, so it would be really good to have a bit of science behind that. It might lead us to wanting more bikes, for example, in the city of Prospect. So who knows? But look, I think it's a good motion. I think it's a good bit of information for us to use. I look forward to seeing it in March and hopefully in time for our discussion.
Thank you. Any further debate? Councillor Debate.
I commend Councillor on putting forward the motion. I think it's an interesting sort of byline in a report. But you have to remember on the street, Polsford Road, where a child was run over, which was why traffic control devices were put in. We had chicanes and the other street had speed humps, and then it's gone back to speed humps. So I think ultimately what speed humps do is for the 1 in 10,000 idiots that insist on driving fast is a deterrent to stop them. So I think we've got to remember why we put them in the first place.
Further debate, Councillor.
Brief question, and looking forward to supporting the motion. So who should I direct my question to?
Oh, give me a go. It's worked for a few years.
How do we define fuels? what fuel are we looking at as part of this study?
I'm going to give that to someone else.
I can answer that. I can answer that.
Stan can answer that in summing up.
I can.
Well, I guess maybe if I was just to speak briefly.
Ask the director how he will interpret.
It's actually in the motion.
Sorry, I'll take the question. Director.
CO2. Well, I guess the point of...
How would you interpret the question of how you define fuel?
Through the chair, I'll have to take our advice and do it, take investigation to the various
You need to
officers.
stand, unfortunately. Now that you are answering questions.
Through the chair, that's something we'll investigate as part of our process.
Okay, so you draw that into the... Okay, thank you. Back to you, Councillor.
So I mean, yeah, broadly in favour of understanding it in further detail. I'm supportive of the motion, and I guess, the fuel does play into it somewhat. So, for instance, if LPG has a higher burn rate and therefore is likely to cause more emissions while it's going over humps or require more fuel in order to propel itself forward, that would be interesting to know in contrast to, say, diesel, as it would, say, some of these hybrid and electric vehicles we have coming onto the road as well. So, without wanting to complicate it further, it's an interesting proposition. Fuel as part of mix. I'm looking forward to supporting the motion.
Thank you. Yes, one has got electric cars. Councillor Barnett. Sorry.
Yes, I'm just interested in obviously getting a report back, and it's not. I think we should always just blindly accept what Australian and other standards sort of say. So I look forward to the report, and I was going to say yes, well, fuel could mean like on hybrid cars like I have, and also the possibility of electric cars, which are now becoming a stronger possibility. So yeah, and also taking, the speed humps. We had Prospect Council, I believe, when Mike Meakin was our director of infrastructure, whatever. And I believe that in Harvey Street, we're the first council in Australia, possibly in Australia, to introduce those speed humps. So, we're always a bit ahead of the pack. So let's see what this light bulb dings for us.
Thank you. Further debate. Councillor Harris.
I thank the previous speaker for pointing out the fact we were the first in South Australia to put these humps up, and thank her for it. Look, I'm interested in it because I believe the speed humps are very important to slow people down and should be there to save accident. But I'd be very happy if it says we use 40 or 50 or 60% extra fuel, because apart from those that really need to use the streets to get the house, it might convince these other people to go elsewhere, and it might be cheaper with their fuel. So I'm interested to look at it, but I think it's a good idea. But I believe the humps are, if we can have a good hump in our streets, we're okay.
Any further debate? Councillor Stan, back to you to sum up.
Yes, I'll just address some wonderful comments there. I think Councillor De Backer and also Councillor Harris bring up the safety elements of speed humps. I think there's other ways of doing that aren't quite so brutal. There's been some wonderful stuff being done in Kilburn where they've done traffic calming that isn't quite as aggressive as the ones that we use, and by all reports the residents are absolutely 100% happy with the result. I'm currently in consultation with those residents to see if they can get a report done by their council that we can then jump on the back of and have a look at. So I'm very cognizant of the fact that safety should be paramount and utmost. And let's see if we can get, why can't we have both, as the little girl once said. Councillor Evans' point about what is a fuel, the reason we have the words CO2 equivalent, that actually covers that. CO2 equivalency is an algorithm that basically covers off all the different burn rates, as you said, all the different energy ratings of all the different fuels, and brings them down to one factor. So you can actually get them all together into a CO2e. So a little bit of research, and you'll be happy with that outcome. So that's why CO2 equivalent was in there, just for that particular factor. because diesel is a whole lot dirtier and has a lesser energy rating than, say, regular fuel. Thank you for listening. I hope you support the motion.
And thank you. That concludes the debate. All those in favour? It's carried unanimously. So, Councillor Stanley, you're on a roll.
There it is, up there. Yes, I'm calling for a report to be provided on the merit or otherwise of change in the intervention trigger as adopted in Council's local area traffic management policy, section 5.4, to be expressed as a percentage above the speed limit rather than as currently expressed by kilometres per hour. And this report to be presented to Council by March 2018, which is pretty much about the same time that we're going to have a conversation. The reason is there's a little bit of housekeeping. There's a bit of a hangover in the council policy in the traffic management area, whereby a local area street is defined by its nature but not by its speed. And to put not too fine a point of it, the intervention, my little bit of paper here, the intervention trigger, if you like, for a local area street at the 85th percentile is 40 to 50 kilometres an hour. Now, the problem we have is the local area street isn't actually defined by its kilometre per hour limit. And we have 40 kilometres an hour. We actually have 50 kilometres an hour. And if we do something with the street around Memorial Gardens, we quite possibly could have a 25 kilometre an hour. Each one of those has got the exact same trigger number for intervention. So what I'm suggesting is that instead of having an actual kilometre an hour trigger number, that we change that to a percentage above the posted limit. For instance, and I don't know whether I need to explain it anymore, but it's basically at 40 kilometres an hour, the trigger at 45 to 50 means that people are travelling over the limit. At 50 kilometres an hour, the trigger at 45 kilometres an hour means people are travelling under the posted limit, and probably find it quite surprising why we were doing something in the street. So it's a little bit of policy housekeeping that just allows us to have different local street speeds, but keep the same intervention trigger. And so we have it as a percentage rather than a static amount. I hope that explains it.
See, thank you. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Barnett, would you speak to it?
Well, I'll just second it because obviously I need to have more education.
Do we have any further debate? Councillor Harris.
Thank you for saying almost what I was going to say. But apart from that, I think it's a good idea because when it comes up, and hopefully it comes up at a workshop, then it gives us a chance to jump in and say a few other things, particularly about the whole merit of how we do it and how we should be changing it, not just for that, but for other reasons. So I'll be glad that we can raise a few points.
Any further debate? Back to you. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, just briefly, I'm not dissimilar to the other councillors who've spoken. I'm not sure I get it. But I thought I might try and get it better by asking a question of somebody, which I'll direct through the mayor. Is it feasible for us to change the intervention trigger from a posted speed limit to a percentage? Can I just understand if that's actually possible?
Yeah, thank you.
That might just have an hour.
Director.
Through the chair, we're happy to investigate that. We haven't done that research at the moment. It's something that some councils have investigated, but we're happy to see how it will affect. So it's not just changing the figure; it's how that will affect future decisions. So we're happy to investigate as part of the report.
So maybe just a follow-up question. You said through the mayor that other councils have actually investigated it. Have other councils changed to a percentage rather than a fixed?
Yeah, correct.
Through the chair, I know some councils are investigating. I'm not sure if they've actually made a decision on that yet today.
I'm still none the wiser. Maybe voting yes for it would help you become more clear, or maybe the mover could maybe explain a bit more and summing up if you
Get in the mover.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Back.
Yeah, just briefly, I would like the benefits of it explained, because it is to report to council, but looking further, it says 5.4.2 consideration can also be given to a range of other issues, including percentage of commercial vehicles, proportion of through traffic, and there's rat running, so I'm sure you might want that addressed as well, Mark. Pick our traffic conditions. So I think what actually needs is a matrix or a tool that allows us to pick up issues, and that might be a combination of issues, not just speeds and percentiles.
Further debate? If not,
Yeah, I've had a stab at this a few times, and I don't think I've ever adequately well explained it. I guess all I can say is that if we can't do a percentage, then because we've got different the local streets have different speed limits for the same type of street. If this doesn't work, we might need to reclassify our streets as 40s and 50s and 25s and have different interventions for each one of those speed limits. This seems like a flexible and fluid way of having local streets with different speed limits being defined, and we don't have to change. If we change, all of a sudden, if we think a 30 kilometre an hour speed street is okay, we've got a mechanism by where we can fluidly set the intervention level without having to just reclassify these streets all the time. Currently, it's just not fair. If you've got a 40 kilometre street, people, the 85th percentile is 45, so you can have people speeding down that street and there's no intervention. If you're in a 50 kilometre street, the intervention's at 45, the same. So you're doing the right thing and you're still getting intervention. So there's no parity and no fairness in the way that streets are, the way that we're in doing something in these streets. It's been like this for quite a while. I think we just need to put a bit of parity and fairness in the way that we deal with just different streets at different speed limits.
thank you. That concludes the debate. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. 202. Councillor Larwood, 9.3, bike-friendly community. You move that?
Yes, sorry, I do,
Get it
yes.
out to us.
Okay, first of all, I'd like to apologise for being late. I was riding to the council meeting here. I felt relatively safe in the streets, but not completely, so I had to take it slowly and just sort of look after myself a little bit. So, yeah, apologies for being late. Okay, so my glasses don't really work at this distance, but I believe that it says that a council workshop be held no later than March 2018 on innovative methods to demonstrate best practice in being a bike-friendly community and welcoming destination for cyclists. And part 2 says that staff investigate the opportunity for guest speakers from the local bicycle community, industry representatives and relevant government agencies to present best practice approaches as part of the discussion. I will, thank you. So this motion isn't about safety, because I think that Prospect has done a fair bit with regards to safety over the years with bike lanes and those types of things. But safety is a part of it, and I can't help but feel every time I go out on the road and I ride regularly, the perception of cyclists is really bad, and there's a lot of social media around the place about the rabid gangs of cyclists who take over the streets on Saturday mornings dressed up in lycra for no other reason but to annoy everybody. And I don't think that's true, and I think that a way of addressing that problem is to look holistically at what it means to be bicycle friendly and what it means to be accessible. It means reviewing all the facets of what that means. That's what the motion is about, and that's what I think we should do. As part of the workshop, we should look at the fees. We should look broadly at what happens around the world. We should bring in experts. We should use our own experiences, and we should come up with a list of things that we could do. From there, we should look at what we should do based on benefits to the community, affordability, what makes sense for us now, and then implement a range of activities and infrastructure decisions which will help the City of Prospect achieve a goal of being recognised as a bike-friendly city to live in and a bike-friendly destination for visitors. So I had a good think about why this was important, both from a personal perspective but also from the perspective of our city. From a personal perspective, there are many reasons why people ride bikes. It could be environmental, such as one of the motions before related to environmental sustainability. It could simply be exercise. It could be friendship. It could be solitude. There's nothing like getting out on the road for 4 or 5 hours by yourself and giving yourself time to clear your head and think about stuff. It could be a personal challenge. So there's many reasons why people choose to ride their bikes, and they're all valid reasons. So the things that we talk about and plan and discuss should take those things into account. From our city's perspective, why is it important? I was doing some reading about this the other day, and I came across a phrase which said livable equals bikeable and walkable, but for the purposes of the discussion, I've dropped the walkable part. So I think part of being an inner suburban precinct such as what Prospect is, that's an important facet. I think it fits in well with the brand that we're creating for the city of Prospect. And I think that we could probably also draw some parallels into our intelligent community mantle. So what makes a city bike friendly? There's a long list that we could add here. Some of the ones that I've come up with are the obvious ones, such as bike lanes and protected intersections. There's also a concept called the Idaho stop, which was, funnily enough, invented in Idaho, and it means that within reason, cycling rules are slightly different to car users rules, and there's a whole list of things as to what that means. I won't go into the details now. Bike infrastructure, including racks, including what you do when you get to your destination if you're a cyclist, including safety and security, including a whole range of things which might make you take the decision to ride your bike to Prospect as opposed to driving a car. Bike sharing as part of what we encourage and what we help facilitate. Creating bike-friendly destinations. And also at the bottom of my list here is a concept called glowing paths, which I'm sure won't be at the top of our agenda, but it's a cool idea and you see it a lot in certain European countries. So, you know, surely this is all too difficult. All we need to do is to look to our south and we see the problems that our neighbours in the city of Adelaide have had with making the right decisions and implementing these sorts of policies. But this kind of stuff's happening all around the world. So I don't think it's too difficult. It just depends on our desire to pick it up. Some examples of what happens around the world. New York, in August, closes off 7 kilometres of New York streets and makes them open to the public for playing, running, walking and cycling. In Bogota, in Colombia, there's a 40-year tradition called Cyclovia, which means they shut down 70 miles of city streets from 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. and turn it over. And all these things are helping improve the perception of cycling and bringing it out onto the streets and making it accessible. There's more than just a feel-good component of this as well. There's economic benefit to be gained. A Danish study revealed that for every kilometre cycled, society enjoys a 23-cent profit, while driving the same distance produces a net loss of 16 cents. I won't go into the details of how they work that out now, but you know, it seems reasonable. In Brisbane, there was a study carried out in their restaurant precincts, and it reinforced the fact that a large percentage of people who go to those precincts get there by non-car means, and that includes cycling. So investing in bike infrastructure potentially has the net benefit of increasing patronage and also overall spend. So there's a whole lot of reasons, and that's what I'd like to uncover and discuss as a group and also with a whole range of people. So that's what I've got at the moment.
Thank you. Got a second bit? Councillor Barnett.
Yes, I agree with all the things that my co-councillor has said, and I think it's true that it's not only just seems to be far more concentration on the physical side of being bike-friendly community, which we've certainly done our and still doing our bit here. But I think it's also about that what's popped up over the last few years, and it seems to come up during the tour down under, some key sort of events seem to get that bad attitude that happens, and my co-councillor mentioned that. So I think, there are things that we do with our school children. We close off parts of our streets and try and tackle it at that earlier age. And certainly there most probably could be some opportunity, if it's not already too crowded agenda with our terrific Down Under, to do something more about that, the attitudinal side of things and the educational side of things. And also, I think there are other key events, Ride to Work and some others. So I think there are some very, perhaps it doesn't have to be on a big key event thing, but there could be quite a few smaller, perhaps less costly type attitudinal approaches.
Further debate on this one? Councillor Harris, and then the back.
I'm going to support it because there's a good chance to talk about being car friendly in the same breath, and the only not the only reason why I'm going to support it. The only reason I'm going to speak is one of the great benefits that may come out of a thing like his is a perfect example. It's from Scotty's Corner to the Parklands, and there is no such thing as any sort of bike track along there. And so we are a car city, and it'd be maybe nice if it wasn't in the long run, but in the near future or even the long-term future, we are a car place. Bikes are been there forever, still coming along. They should fit together, but it might give us the opportunity to look at things, i.e. that one, and there's many other places like that, so that they all fit in. So I'm happy to support it.
Councillor De Backer.
Yeah, just briefly, I'd like to support the motion as well. I think it's very sort of forward-thinking, but really we want to engage best practice in everything that we do. I'd actually like to see the workshop widen to include pedestrian and sort of mobility vehicles, because I think any non-car access throughout the city is really important, and I think it's an opportunity to discuss that with not just the cycling community but pedestrians as well.
Further back, Councillor Stan.
Yeah, I think getting cyclists and motorists and residents and council to work together is the silver bullet in all of this. And if someone can actually come up with a solution, I think that's going to be great for everyone. Cycling is a wonderful way to get around. It's not one that I do often enough. I used to be an avid cyclist, and I used to ride to work every day. And then I got old and fat and really couldn't push those little pedals up those hills. I'll get an electric bike and we'll meet cycling halfway. But I think it's fantastic. If we can find a way to get cycling to work in our city, we will be ahead of the game. And I think that's something fantastic we can do.
Further debate? Not Councillor Larwood, you to sum up.
Thank you. I think we have already led the way. If we recall, the initial focus of our wonderful street party was based around cycling. So we've obviously kicked the ball off. It's moved away a little bit over recent years. I recently extended an invitation to one of my co-elected members to join me on a ride around the city or up to the hills. They haven't responded either way yet, so I'm still hopeful that might be taken up. But I'd like to take this opportunity to extend it out more broadly to everyone. Maybe we could, en masse as a group, we could ride around the various streets and experience the highs and lows of what cycling means. We could look at cafe racing, such as what they do in Europe, where you start off at a cafe and have a coffee and something to eat, and then you rendezvous at the next one in the next suburb. And we could use this as a bonding exercise as a group, and we could be friendly and include our near neighbours to the north, south, east and west. Yeah, I've got some out in the lobby organised for everybody. That's all right.
Size fit all.
You've got to interrupt the summer up with such a scary question.
Yes. I think someone the other day, as I was riding past them, I like a bung Fritz out the window. I'm not quite sure what they were referring to, but anyway, I kept on going. I think I might have been thinking about the shopping order and not being rude to me. I like the idea of including different modes of transport, because part of this is about logistics. It's not just about one facet. So I like Councillor De Backer's idea. This might involve trying a few things, such as Councillor Barnett suggested, and we won't necessarily get everything right, but you never achieve greatness or get the most out of an idea if you don't try a few things. So I think that in workshopping some ideas we might need to be a bit bold, but I think this is a great chance to lead again, and I'd love to be in a position where in a few years' time our neighbouring councils are copying and mimicking what we're doing, and benefiting from the foresight that we've shown. So I'd like to ask everybody to support the motion.
Thank you. Concludes debate. All those in favour? Carried? Unanimously. Okay, three great motions there. Now on to questions without notice. Are there any? And Councillor De Backer has left in front.
You can go first.
I've got three.
Hand went up like that rocket.
Yeah.
Yes, you may have been caught in the email trail recently with the condition of St Helens Park, and I think there's been some ongoing issues, and I just wanted clarification on the record of what's happening with it. So the first issue is the poles, which are wonky and not safe, and I think they should just be pulled out and addressed. And also the condition of the plantings in relation to the whole streetscape and Prospect as a precinct.
See ya.
Thank you, Mayor. I've been discussing this with the Director of Infrastructure and Environment and our staff. There certainly, I think, is a significant issue with the overall maintenance of St Helens Park. I was brought to my attention that the maintenance of the park is contracted out, but they're focusing on the grassed area, and that was a decision made some years ago. We will have a look at a program in relation to bringing back in-house the maintenance of the garden beds. I'm particularly concerned about the roses and the carob tree and general maintenance within the park, the litter that's in the grass, and also the planter boxes on Main North Road, which we haven't yet been able to address through discussions with our contractors. So the staff member looking after the park is meeting with our contractor tomorrow in order to discuss those matters of significant concern or immediate concern to seek an address as soon as possible. And then we'll have a look from our resourcing a better approach to maintaining that park, particularly as it is heavily used, and we recognise that it is a much loved space. So we certainly need to respond in a better way to the overall maintenance within it.
Thank you. Anything further on that issue?
Just the poles.
So, CEO didn't address the poles, which we all love.
Thank you for the reminder. I didn't address the polls. We are having a look at the general signage. That is a cross-council issue. So certainly in speaking with Director of Community, we have identified that a number of different groups use the poles or use the frontage of the park for signage, and how best do we actually manage that signage overall, and we do need a cross-council approach to it. So we'll be having a look at that as well.
Thank you. Councillor Harris.
Yes, I have 3 questions, sir, and I'll direct them directly to you. My first one is, as you remember, I moved the motion on what you've done, and I pointed out the thing about the Wi-Fi and that, and the director's sitting here. Because we've taken on board how terrific it is, when are we going to get it to work? Now, I can say the one even today again's not working here, and I haven't been here since 2 o'clock, so prior to 2 o'clock, the one here's not working. You beat me on the one outside the cinema because Friday it wasn't working, but you sent me an email. So my question is, we've told everyone how terrific it is. When's it all going to work?
Great question, which I feel obliged to defer to the Director.
Okay, thank you, through the Chair. We have been in contact with Vintech, who are our suppliers, and they have assured me that the one out, I have checked that one several times, and it's on and off. They assured me yesterday that it was working. So, and we did check outside the council meeting that the other night that it wasn't actually working.
No,
but
it wasn't working today.
Yeah, it was working.
No.
It wasn't working today. They assured me yesterday that it was, and that we were getting speeds of 50 megabits a second download. So I'll provide a report to council on where we're up to with that. But we're actually in the stage where we're actually feeling like, apart from that one just there, that we're actually completing the project and we're ready to sign off as an economic project. So yeah, I'll provide a report on that. Thank you.
Thank you. The other one is, particularly because we discussed bikes, I was through the chair, or the mayor, I'd like to ask, are we spending much money finding all these yellow bikes on the on the footpath? They don't even leave them in the parks. These yellow, thick body things, they're on Main North Road, they're on Alpha Road, they're over in the schoolyard. Do we pick them up, or are we spending money picking up these push bikes off our streets?
Before I ask somebody somewhere, Director, to answer the question, I will say that I have resisted all attempts given to me that we should bring to you a motion to support share bikes in our city. I just said, not yet. Wait until someone else resolves all these problems. So nothing's come to you because for that reason. We've had a couple of approaches, not lots, but a couple. Director, in terms of what we're currently experiencing, is there much of a cost burden to us at this point?
Through the chair, none at all. We're not responsible for the bikes.
Just leave them on the footpath.
It's the process.
And sorry, Director, have you noticed that there are some that don't seem to move, or they seem to get collected, or what?
Through the chair, we have noticed some have been there for a few weeks, but eventually they do get moved on. Someone. Obviously, they've got a GPS system in them, so the owners of the company knows where the bikes are at all times. I believe if they're there for too long, they'll come and collect them.
Councillor Harris.
Yeah, that's good, because I was going to knock off a few, but I discovered they had a GPS, so I thought I couldn't sell them. The last one is the question to you, Mayor, is I received email today and also previous from the Director of Infrastructure, and I thank him very much for it, about the asbestos problem I thought was at the tennis club, and it's not, and a few problems there are being fixed. But my question is, I don't know how you feel, but I feel pretty terrible. In 2015, 2016, the previous director here at these meetings told me face up in front of everyone else that the register was up to date, that the things were being fixed both in 15 and 16, and we now have a situation, and unfortunately the tennis people didn't quite understand it because theirs is a gyprock set up, but there's a situation with the place next to the Lions Club and all that that's been changed. It's not in our register and our register's not up to date. I feel terrible, and that's why I don't know how terrible you feel, but the previous director here kept assuring me, in fact told me to mind my own business, because these things are up to date, and they haven't been touched since 2014, and they're not up to current date.
A couple of things in your question, and
sorry,
to answer directly, I'm not comfortable that the register's not up to date. Secondly, I understand that there's some confusion in the register about there being two buildings associated with the Broadview Tennis Club, one of which is their active club rooms. That doesn't have any asbestos on it. That's according to the consultant that's been engaged, and I refer to the director.
And that's pretty right.
And then there's the St Philip's Kindergarten, the St Philip's Church.
Sorry, St Philip's Tennis Courts, which
does have asbestos listed. That is under the lease, that Broadview Tennis Club lease. So there are two properties labelled Broadview Tennis Club, two buildings, but they only really use one. And Director, just to confirm again that the current clubroom site that's associated with the major tennis court area, your advice and consultant's advice is no asbestos on that.
Through the chair, that's correct.
Sorry, Mayor, can I just put him a bit more at unease?
If there's a question,
well, the question is, the answer is club totally okay, no, but within 4 feet away, 2 feet away, and 1 feet away is the thing that the Lions use for cans, and used to be the bows and arrows place. That hangs over the tennis court. That has been altered, changed. Asbestos has been shifted in one part, left in another part. It's been all the things with asbestos. It's been cut, channeled, shaved, and sawn up, and it's there, and it's not on our register. And people are in the tennis court, and I'll tell you, because that thing's listening, it's not actually totally dangerous because they've done it. But the fact is, it's there in their vicinity, and it's not on our register like I was told it was.
Thank you. Not quite a question, but I'll...
No, sorry about that.
Yes, we would like to get that register update.
I'm willing to help anyone that wants to fix it.
Director may be in touch about what you know about the site. Thank you. Any other questions without notice? There being none. Members of committees and regional subsidiaries and other bodies are nil. Reports of decision. First one, 13.1. Resolution to finalise the revocation of land status of 218 Main North Road. Anybody wish to move it? As it is. Deputy Mayor, wish to speak to it?
Look, I'm happy to accept it as read.
Okay. Got a seconder? Councillor Barnett, wish to speak to it?
It's one of those sort of motions that is required.
Absolutely, anyway. What it is. Sorry, speaking from the chair, first to speak after the second, that it should never have been added to the community land register. It's a mistake recognised by the staff. There's no intention for it ever to be a park. So it's a bit of, anyway, this resolves it. Subject to getting up tonight. Anybody else wish to speak to it? Mover, do you wish to sum up your excellent speech?
I think that's been said.
That concludes the debate. All those in favour? Against is carried unanimously. Thank you. 13.2, development and associated public law enforcement policy. A bit of discussion with the staff. There's a lot more work to do in this, and the staff are interested in our comments on the direction of this, but I've sort of come to the conclusion it's not quite polished yet, and we appreciate you inserting the word with the mover, inserting the word draft, there you go, as a draft policy at the end. So noting in the report it says there's a lot of regulation and operations matters that have to be considered, and I think they should be written and come back and make sure the policy works. So someone happy to move those extra couple of words? Councillor Harris.
I speak now?
Yep.
Look, I'm happy to move, particularly because of the change, because I still think it's a work in practice, and I'm trying to be a little bit sneaky and find the page while we're going along, but I'll do it. Okay. Look, I think the way it's gone is good. We're in that track. But so the fact of being a draft policy then leaves it open, but I believe it should come to a workshop as well. And a couple of areas that I don't see it covered, and it could be covered in some of these, this law, that law, that I can't read all the time. So there's particular things about cranage, particular things about hoardings and fencing and concrete pours. Amongst all the others, I'd like to see some of them written. I sent some stuff, I think, to the CEO the other day, and it was passed on to Peter, but to me, I think it should be in this sort of policy. We had a concrete pour going on next to a school, 2 houses away from the school, during, not so much just during school hours, it was during pick-up and drop-off time. So we had concrete trucks, and I sent the photos, on the side of the road you're not allowed to even park on, facing the wrong way, then going to the other side, and people, kids, ducking in and out of these sort of things. We got a project that's happening right at the moment in Wilcock, and I again got photos of this, and there's things about the footpath. If you're walking this way to Main North Road, it's pretty good because you'll see a sign, yellow sign that says use the other footpath. You come from the other way, there's nothing. You just climb through the thing, particularly while they're lifting, and I know every one of those blokes erecting the steel and they know their job, so I doubt they'll drop anything. But there's nothing to tell people to go on the other side. So it's not just the bigger projects. There's things that can happen. There's a law, and I checked it today, and I just said the wrong word because it's not a law. There's an agreement between Workplace Service or whoever, SA, Work Safe Work, and the Housing Trust, that any housing type projects or people that work under the HIA stuff that are within 200 metres of a school and or possibly in a school track where the kids might go, so it still might be 500 metres, but it's where the kids go, that they will put up temporary fencing. Now, it's not a law, it's an agreement that's reached. And I've asked those people, and while they're not telling everyone else their job, that it is possible that we can put some of these things into our sort of policy. So I'm very thankful to all the staff that what we've done, where we're going, but I believe for the sake of things, it's got to go further. The lady I spoke to about the poor, she said it was important. We followed the rules. We done this and that, and we have to get a house poured. Now, I know me personally, and I possibly Dave, but I know I've had 17 deaths, and 2 of them have been children. Not in our side streets and that. And one of the worst things is to see people that die when they don't have to. And nothing's going to be worse than one of you people fronting up to some family and say, well, we could have had this in the rules, or we couldn't have had this in the rules, but your son's dead or your daughter's dead. So please, I'm very thankful what's happened, but I believe we can go further and make it a hell of a lot safer down in your area, your 2 areas. You go down alongside the railway line, it's particularly, and I'd like to go and front up to the characters, and I already have, on the 189 one, and the way they're building that stuff, we've got trees on the other side and all that, they're dumping their stairs there, they're dumping all the things. When they pour concrete, there was no signage whatsoever, and doing a concrete pour is sometimes a bit late at 5:30 this morning to try and get one of you to come out. So please, let's bring it back to, or it hadn't been there, but bring it to a workshop once we get a bit further, and I believe we can come up with something. So I urge people to support that, particularly with the draft policy.
Yes, I concur, and I've just had another resident down on Devonport Terrace, but and she put it to our admin email and CC'd me in, but to me, seeing this sort of draft, if we have a good, strong look at how we can get people to report this in an appropriate and timely manner, because by the time the person's, and it was about opposite property down on Devonport Terrace, apparently the crane's been standing where they're doing the development on council verge, and it seems to be a very unsafe practice. It's all mud or dirt, and doesn't seem to be, to me, even as a layperson, a very safe practice. So, but one of my concerns is about how do we get this reported in a timely fashion. So I believe that should be allied with our communication policy that we're looking at as well.
Any further debate? Councillor Back.
Yeah, look, I again commend the staff for the effort they've put into it. It's incredibly important because I think City of Prospect is delivering on the 30-year plan for the state, and I also think that the state, the local government association, the industry associations have to be involved because a bit like Alan says, there's safe work issues happening, and we don't want our residents inconvenienced or hurt or hopefully not killed by some of the practices that go on. So I think there's certainly opportunity to have more support, probably from the state and industry organisations, and there needs to be greater reporting to the likes of Safe Work SA when breaches occur.
Further debate? Councillor Evans.
Just briefly, it's great to see that there's continuing progress, and clearly a lot of work and thought has gone into this. So again, to commend the staff on what no doubt is quite a very difficult area to address. I think just to echo the thoughts of Councillor Harris as well, it would be good to have a workshop on this, more or less just particularly for my own understanding and just to know how this is progressing as well. For instance, we're talking about a permit fee structure that may be put in place over the coming months, and that we'd have an opportunity to add input into that process, and potentially in the new year just a workshop that seeks to, I guess, update us on what's happening in the policy framework overall, as well as to perhaps start to canvass and think around some of those issues more holistically would be really good. So great work to date. Looking forward to supporting the resolution and to continuing the discussions into the new year.
Thank you. Just brief from the chair. I think there's good comments there. If other people have some feedback, I know Councillor Baines provided some, please do so in writing, just email is fine, and put that through to Nathan, and make sure we get those items filled in. I think Sarah suggested we're coming to a workshop. You're open to that?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Certainly we'll schedule for a workshop. If you do have some commentary, we would certainly appreciate it before the workshop so that we can actually recognise that as part of the presentation and ensure that we've covered it. That way at the workshop we can confirm if the direction is correct rather than trying to then identify that at the workshop and come back again.
Thank you. And perhaps another question to somebody, perhaps to the Director. There are a number of other councils that have these issues. Mawson Lakes has a lot of medium rise. Certainly the City of Adelaide does. Out of Norwood. Are we going to these other councils and asking them for their policy and regulation and what works and what doesn't?
Through the chair, we've certainly looked into what's available online in terms of other policies, but have gone to a policy.
But I urge you to do so. I don't want to adopt a policy online that they would tell you is not good enough. We want to have the best because we'll be the latest one to adopt it. So I'm not saying we're going to create model policy, but I wouldn't be against that. I'm just saying because we'll be the latest, we should have the latest thinking involved. And I don't want to reinvent a wheel that's already embedded somewhere else. It just takes more time and effort than we need to. So There's good, as Councillor Harris pointed out, there's good regulation around this sort of stuff. There's good permit systems. I've got plenty of ideas and suggestions around this that I'll try and forward to you. But we're going to grant someone a permit. It shouldn't go forever. If we're giving someone a permit to put materials on our land, it should have to be fenced, and there should be a sign on it saying that they've got a permit. So people in the neighbourhood know that it's organised and the council's aware, and all those sort of things. And it's all about, I think, that interaction with your neighbours, that we're a very built-up environment. We're not like a new paddock that someone's carving a new estate into. We are a very well-developed area, so we just need to be cognizant of that too, the way we develop these policies. So, now, thank you for the effort so far, and look forward to the next stages, and hope it's not too far away, CEO, because we've had a number of motions about this over an extended period of time. So, could you just let us know, when do you think it comes to us in the next phase?
Thank you, Mayor. We will need to have a look at our workshop program. January is fairly heavily already committed, particularly as we need to do some work with you around the long-term financial plan and the asset management plan and further work in relation to our CLIP project. So we will need to have a look at the program in relation to February, March, and have a look at what can be identified so we can bring it back to you as soon as possible.
So it's a quick follow-up question. We've had a number of these sorts of problems for a while. Are you confident we've got enough tools in our toolkit to deal with issues up until we have that framework in place, possibly in March?
Through the chair, at the moment, we're currently dealing with it as the same like we always have in terms of complaints or in a reactive sense. The permit system is looking at being refined in this process. So, it's probably fair to also add, we haven't had an increase in issues being raised to us in the last sort of 6 or 8 months. It's been steady. It's been one of the, there's been a number of those that we're just continuing to look at, whether it be an issue with compliance with the condition of approval, or whether it be more the on-site during construction. So they've been managed to a degree, the same as they have been prior to it coming to council. And just further to that, there is a recruitment process that has commenced, which was outlined in the council report that launched the policy. So that we look at that recruitment occurring through January, February, and therefore we'll be able to provide a little bit more resourcing to this.
So there'll be a resource tuned to these issues in place by February, March, so you're saying?
Through the chair, ideally by February, but likely by March, and this will be a component of their role.
Okay, thank you. That's all I had. Any further debate at all? Councillor Harris, could you sum up?
Yeah, look, just to finish, perhaps if the previous councillor didn't raise a thing about drones, we could have flown them all over the area, finding things. But I just heard the comments that come, and the particular one I'd go to is a thing like the concrete pour. Parking the trucks being on the wrong side of the road and all that, but being there at that time, this and all that stuff, I don't think breaks any current laws we had in the wrong place. But the safety aspect's there. So it's important to continue like we are till we get further, can have those problems. But if there was a thing like the permit system and stuff on there, yes, you can pour, and you pour concrete between 9 and where it is, between 9 and 3. Peter or the other lad and that to go and say, oh, on your truck, you can't do it. You stop. And I went home because it wouldn't be easy to stop it, but I've stopped it many times in my life, so I could help and assist. But look, I still want to say thanks for what you're doing, but it still needs to be more to make me feel safe. And if it takes a bit longer and it's still dangerous, I still think it's important to get to somewhere good, because the Mayor made the comments about we could actually lead in some of these things. I got a document from another council, and some of their things are very good. Adelaide City's got a process for a whole lot of street come construction, and it's a bigger place. It's a thing, but we're getting to the 4s and 5s and 3s and that. So some of those things we're branching into. So it's important, particularly because I know some of the developers and builders. So thanks for doing it. thankful that we're calling to have a report and continue. And I'm busy Christmas Day, so I can't sit down with you, but I can the day after and go through it. You give me a call and I'll fix it, because I know, and I won't fix it, I'll help you. I urge people to vote for it. But my office here to sort out any problems.
Boxing Day off includes debate. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, discussion 13.3, the Fund My Neighbourhood Grant Program, grant on outcomes, recommendations there on page 27. Councillor Bennett, happy to move it?
Yes, certainly, because I think although it's wonderful to have that amount of money out into our community, as the people involved, various community groups, who people just could not understand, or even ones that thought that they were fairly computer literate, said it was so difficult to get onto and to work it through. So there really needs to be something looked at in their program, in their the computer part of their program. So a good idea, but it just doesn't seem to be working for people that were very keen to go online and vote, but then just gave up. That was common feedback. And also I think there was two bigger lacks, as we've pointed out in our motions here, two bigger lacks by the time that it was released, you know, to the community, and then when the LGA got on board and other councils got on board, there seemed to be a huge time lapse between all that and trying to promote it and, you know, get the word out and all that. So I'm very pleased that we're asking for a review of this, and also I think there's something wrong with the program that says if you live at you live over at Bowden and Brompton, you were in the 15-kilometre radius, so you could actually vote for us. I mean, we could vote for theirs as well, but you know, you probably would want to vote for those in your own neighbourhood. So yeah, there just seems to be something that needs to be worked through a bit, and to make it much easier for people, and also to take into account, I do believe that even though we were, when the results came out, like for example City of Prospect was put in with the Eastern Adelaide region and others, the West, South, North, whatever, but it's my understanding that was only done for the collation of the thing. A lot of people in the community contacted me and were quite cross because they thought, oh, well, you know, more people in Unley, therefore more people could vote. But I don't think that was the case. So we could, when they saw, oh, we're up against all those suburbs in the eastern, you know, Adelaide region. So I think that was a bit unfair, the way that that sort of came across and was reported.
Okay. Thank you. Do I have a second of it? Councillor Stanton, speak to it.
I do, and as someone who also was directly involved in one of the submissions, it was slightly disappointing but not unsurprising that the popularity contest was not probably the best way for them to manage the distribution of funds. It's no surprise that if you had a good social media support base, or you had access to somebody else's database, you could probably you could influence the outcome in your favour. I think my only suggestion for the future of this would be to make that part of maybe a percentage of the decision-making process, and maybe involve local council in another percentage, and then state government, because it's their money in maybe in just another part of the process, and not have the whole thing rely on social media and popularity. Having said all that, I'm very pleased that someone's offering money, and we need to figure out a way of getting our greasy little mitts on it. I love the recommendation that we actually put the ones that were the ones that got up, at least up onto the page, we put those in front of the budget process, because obviously they are things that the community want to see funded. And if nothing else, it's acted as a little bit of a research project to project to see what people want done in their community. So we can just jump on board that and see if we can put some money towards these things. But an interesting process. I'm not particularly surprised at the outcome.
Further debate? Councillor Barnett, just to sum up.
No, I think enough's been said.
Thank you. All those in favour? Yes, carried unanimously. Next item is 13.4, the PLEC funding, Prospect Road and Hampstead Road, recommendation on page 34. We have a mover. Mr. Harris, if you speak to it.
Very disappointed to move it. But life being as it is, I don't hold my breath. I'm very glad that they're going to fund and continue the one along Prospect Road into our part of the city and then hopefully finalise going along. The point B is the important one, and further consideration in 2020 and 2021. So it doesn't even mean it happens, it's just consideration. I thought, listened to a previous director, that we were on a better footing than that, but it wasn't the case. So very disappointed to actually be moving it solely because of the point B. Very happy to be moving it because of point A, and it will assist in beautifying the northern part of our city and things like that. So I will be moving. I have moved it.
Yeah, thank you. Do you have a second? Councillor Evans, wish to speak to it?
Just very briefly, more so to ask a question of the Director. Just in terms of the executive summary here, SA Power Networks is anticipating commencement of the undergrounding works to occur in February 2018 with completion at June 2018. Does that mean we're looking at a carry forward capital amount into FY19, I guess, of the streetscape beautification works on Regency Road to Angwin Avenue, this second section? Section.
Through the Chair, my understanding is that we've got money in this year's capital works program for the design of the streetscape upgrade, and construction will be in 18-19.
Okay. So I guess just a supplementary question, is that a carryover into 18-19, or is it a case that 18-19 has always been budgeted for the year?
Through the Chair, it's always been budgeted, so there's no carryover.
And I guess with that, just to echo the views of Councillor Harris, it is disappointing that we can't go ahead with Hampstead Road. That's something that is no doubt continuing to plague us as a project that needs to be done, but I'm very grateful that Prospect Road can finally be completed. So with that, I support the resolution.
Further debate?
Look, just very briefly, I will support the motion, but very disappointed that yet again, well, not yet again, that's unfair, but this is a project that we had a fairly significant commitment, we thought, from another council area. We were led to believe that we voted on the basis that it did have a commitment from another council area. We now find it not to be the case. I'm really disappointed, maybe even angry that that's the case, because I think if nothing else, it's actually quite embarrassing for us as a council to go down that path, create expectations for residents who have expectations around what we're doing and who we're doing it, and then have to backtrack on that. I don't think it's good enough that has happened, but it has happened, and we can only do what we've got for us now. Can I just ask a question through the Mayor, just in relation to financial implications, notwithstanding the question that was just asked? And there is commentary in here around the long-term financial plan, but I just want to be very clear about impact of the long-term financial plan for us, particularly in light of a motion a paper a little bit later on about CLIC, about cost of CLIC. Can I just, could there be some explanation given that there is no adverse impact on long-term financial plan as a result of changing money around different years, and whether that's the 2020-21 figure has been factored into the long-term financial plan? We might be considering that on time.
Through you, Mayor, there's no change to the long-term financial plan because these are the PLEC projects are funded from the operating project pool, so that pool is still available for other projects to go ahead.
Just a supplementary one on that. So when we get to 2021, it's going to be some other people around the table, no doubt, so from council. It's not our decision to make at this point. We choose to spend money in 2021, which we haven't anticipated spending at this point.
Through you, Mayor, we have all about $750,000 in each year for operating projects in the long-term financial plan. So yes, it will consume a large portion of it, and it'll be something the council will then have to face at that point in time.
Sorry, manager. So you're saying because we've got a pool for projects, we notionally have money for this, but of course that would wipe out a whole pile of other. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying. So there's a fund of 750. It would need to go through a budget bid process, and it would need to be assessed on merit.
So yeah, just take up that point. So then there's something that we wouldn't be doing in 2021 that we might be doing now. So look, I'll support the motion. I don't think I personally feel I have a very good choice to do that. Great opportunity for some parts of our city, less great opportunities for other parts. Just
Thank you. Any further debate on this item? Councillor Harris, to sum up.
Thank you.
Brilliant. That concludes the debate. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Look forward to it and to seeing some design stuff when it's ready to come to us. Next item, 13.5, results from the Devonport Terrace Streetscape Survey. Recommendations on page 44. Councillor Barnett, wish to move it?
Yes, I think yet again we have another report over the very many years that I've been on council. So the catalyst, I think, is an opportunity for state government and the fence and electrification and all that. We've had some of the volunteering that I've done with some of the handful of the residents down there. With the state government's, the rail care has been on and off support, but let's hope we can, stimulate that again. I'm also thinking, I'm absolutely, I was going to say amazed that traditionally a project of this nature, under the financial and resource implications, cost about $200,000 in consultancy fees and $2.2 to $3 million to construct. Does that, what sort of fence are we getting? And also, what sort of, is it drains or, I mean, a question to you, to a director, what is making this so jolly expensive?
Good question. I had the same question. The fence we don't pay a cent for, so I'm not quite sure where the gold leaf is going. But can someone help me understand where that estimate came from? Director?
Through the chair, yes. That estimate comes from stormwater management, which can be quite expensive. Unfortunately, it's not often very seen. It's underground. Improved lighting. And some paths. So it is only it's a guesstimate at this stage, and it is worst case scenario. We didn't want to underestimate what those costs would be. The devil's in the detail. When we come back with details, plans, come up with detailed costings.
And I'm just wondering if we can explore other ways to involve other community groups such as Trees for Life. We actually have one of the coordinators that lives in Prospect. And I think so, you know, if we just take off our traditional way that we might go about doing this and sort of look at expanding a bit further how we can involve the community in some community groups and get more of that neighbourhood feel and approach, I think that would add far more value to this project. I'm apart from the cost, which we're now finding that we'll, you know, get more information coming up. But I do hope that we can do something, even if it's just some of the stuff that's waited for decades, the plantings along there, and very happy if we can get some added value from, even if the stormwater, at least if we can get that to water some of the trees down there, I think that would be adding some value to the cost.
Thank you. Second, Councillor Lower. We should speak to it.
Yes. So I think the investigation was a useful process, and I note that we intend to distribute information regarding the outcomes of the consultation process to the residents of Devonport Terrace. But the feeling might be that that's all they're going to get. is a postcard talking about the things that they probably already knew. The timing of carrying out master planning and spending a couple of $100,000 on that to tell us what we end up needing to spend would almost certainly push any decision making out into not next year's budget, but the following year's budget, and then there's another quite significant gap there in the perception of nothing else happening. I'm not advocating we just go down there with shovels and trees and start doing stuff in an unplanned and unorganised way, but I have a concern that whilst master planning is important, we seem to do this a lot and we end up with a lot of things that are sitting not done, waiting for their turn in the queue, and then lose their turn in the queue. So I think I'd support what Councillor Barnett said, and that is that we could look at investigating what we could do to try to not fall into that cycle. It's probably important to do something along those lines down there. And I wonder what we can do to continue engaging with the residents of Davenport Terrace. I also noted that one of the questions that they were out of the questions they were asked, it doesn't seem like they were asked a question about what are their concerns about the impact of high-rise development happening on their street. They were asked a lot of other questions around stormwater and greening and safety and lighting and fencing and those types of things like that. But from the people who have spoken to me about this, they feel significantly impacted by that, as a lot of other people do. I think if we refer back to the previous motion, I think that's one of the areas where that's having a really strong impact on there, because land is tight it's causing all sorts of problems, and no one really knows when it's going to finish or when the next one's going to pop up, and we can't control that. I understand that, but I think it would be useful to think about that a little bit more as well. So while the report's useful and it's done a good job, but I'd really like to see it timelined out and some detail given and regular communications put forward. And lastly, I would like to confirm, in case not everybody here has picked up the fact that I spelled Davenport Terrace wrong twice in my recent article, but I do know how to spell it now because I've written it 150 or 200 times on the whiteboard at work. I've practiced saying it phonetically correctly as well. I've been reminded of the fact that I spelled it wrong by several Westford residents, and so I appreciate all the feedback, but I can confirm that I do know how to spell it now, so I'd just like to pass it on and see if you could spread that amongst your connections and contacts. Thank you.
Copyright check.
Just briefly from the Chair, I'm hoping this gets up tonight. I hope we start a process along Davenport Terrace for a few reasons. One of them is that it does need some help, and I think we will acknowledge that. The second is, I think, I agree with Councillor Barnett, there's a good opportunity for community engagement. I think it's a really great spot to do that. So really, if you go to Auckland down there, they're really good people. They quite like where they are. And they've got an opinion about their street, and it's a unique street. It's the only street we've got. It's got a train line on the other side of the road, and therefore the landscaping and other stuff. So I am a bit concerned about the costs that are mentioned in the report, and I appreciate having at an early decision-making phase. My feedback would be, I don't expect we'll spend a tenth of that amount, and I don't expect that the people there expected either. They haven't raised both the issues that give rise to that amount of money, and I think we've got to be really careful to get people's expectations in the right place. I look forward to seeing the report coming back sooner rather than later. I'd like there to be some consideration of the budget bids in March to get something started. Otherwise, we're going to be, as Councillor Larwood says, the slippery slope of it's all too hard. It's going to wait 100 years. We won't get grant funding for this sort of stuff, so don't dream about it. And then some of the solutions for the stormwater, for instance, would be watering the plants, as Councillor Barnett said. We had considered, years ago, some of you who have been around here, like me a fair while, a plan to run a whole stormwater pipe all about Davenport Terrace and collect all the water and run it straight past the roots of the trees in concrete all the way out to the barker in there. Makes no sense at all. There's plenty of water there that gets collected that with water sensitive urban design can be directed into those plantings and done in a way which keeps the cars out of the plant beds. And that's what I think we should be doing. Simple, easy stuff. And if you look at the list of things people rate as the top priorities, the fence, not our cost. Getting rid of the colour fence, not our cost. Plantings, definitely. Dealing with the stormwater, yes. And I think those things are perfectly manageable. And just probably the point that Councillor Larwood that you raised about, you didn't ask a question specifically about development. That's really interesting. I mean, I've kind of tried to get this survey style up as a bit of template for how we engage with people early on without doing any drawings. Just here's a list of things we think matter. Tell us what you think. Tell us if you want to be involved too. I think 7 or 8% said they do, and we're going to get a community reference group going. But we did put on there, is there anything else we've missed? And another question saying, is there anything else you want to say to us at all about anything to do with council? Get off your chest while you've got the chance. And it was, if you look through the survey results, you'll see that quite a few people have filled out the anything we've missed with some great suggestions. And very few people had a comment in the anything else you'd like to tell us. I think there was one really grumpy person and anything else. I just think that the question is a really good open field question because we don't write to people in this detail often. And it's really good to say, here's your chance. If it's a barking dog, if it's some horrible tree, if it's development, if it's construction activity, tell us whatever you want to tell us. And I thought it was pleasing that we didn't get a whole file of stuff coming back saying we've got no idea what you're doing, etc., etc., etc. I thought it was good. But I just urge the CEO to treat it as a good template for other surveys and other areas of our matters. So we have that open question every time we ask people about a particular issue, and give them a chance to have a say about whatever concerns them. And so there's a whole heap about this that I really like, and I'm particularly enthused by the level of responses we had and the number of people who said they're happy to be involved, and I look forward to seeing what they come up with. So hope you can support it. Any further debate? 50 minutes.
Look, just very briefly, I would certainly concur with everything that's been said, but 2 issues. One, we do have a resident down on Devonport Terrace who has been very active in greening the corridor down there. She's not elected to be involved in the reference group and has elected not to be part of the survey. And it's a real shame. I just wanted to let the staff reach out to her in some way and trying to encourage her to be part of the process because I think she's a fantastic contributor to our council area, particularly for work down Devonport Terrace. So
I can answer that directly. I've all but told her that she will be. Right. And she's the first person I spoke to about this initiative. Okay. And she was delighted. I'm not quite sure why she didn't fill out a response.
I've got a response from her on that. Yeah, so happy to talk to staff offline in that sense. And just the other thing is we have a community reference group for the CLIC. We now have a community reference group for this project. We just might want to think about how we differentiate community reference groups because it may get confusing in the future. I'll just leave that as a comment.
Yeah. Any further debate? Conclude. Sorry, doesn't Councillor Barnett wish to sum up?
No, just some good suggestions. I think that's why it's good to have these matters come to us as a bit of a round table discussion. So just the other thing is that I think because it does cover 2 boards and there are 4 councillors, that there might be some mechanism whereby the 2 boards councillors can also be involved if they wish.
Absolutely. Yeah. I was going to say, that is my absolute expectation, but I won't, because that would be adding to debate, and debate's concluded, so I won't. But that is it. All those in favour? Against, it's carried unanimously. Thank you. Next item is item 13.6, the Prudential Review, the Community Hub Library Innovation Centre, recommendations on page 53. It's a long report, there's a lot in it, and as I foreshadowed at the start of the meeting, the committee met especially to look at this item last night. They shifted their regular meeting to time in with receiving this report. Their minutes were distributed, I think, electronically. Is that correct? And you've got a hard copy in front of you. So if you refer to item 612, you'll see their deliberations there. So just to give you some comfort that they have looked at consider that. So that's just background information. The recommendations on page 53. Does anybody wish to move it? Deputy Mayor, would you speak to it?
Look, just very briefly to say this is a really important part of our FIC process. But I think the most important part of this report starts on page 56 where it talks about a number of items that are outstanding, but it also refers to a number of items outstanding that we have either dealt with or in the process of dealing with. I think that's a really positive part of the financial report. We are very much on top of the issues raised. I think it's a good report, as much as a prudential report can be good. It certainly shows we're on the right track, and I think that the audit committee's confirmation of that last night is a really good indication of that as well. So I encourage people to support the motion. I think it makes a lot of sense. And as I said, those how many items? 16 items of those are largely already been dealt with or in the process of being dealt with. So it's just important to note.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Councillor Evans, would you speak to?
Just briefly, and I guess with the benefit of attending last night's audit committee meeting, it's really apparent the robust governance process that exists around this project, and I think that's very important to note at the outset. So the prudential review that's been done is an independent review of our process to date. It has uncovered a number of risks, and it's uncovered a number of outstanding items as we expect it would, and as has already been discussed, many of these items have already been captured in our risk planning and our risk register, and it's great to see coming out of the prudential review that those additional risks are going to be harmonised with what we're already dealing with, and that there is now a more comprehensive process to ensure that the feedback we've received, the outstanding items that we've received as a result of this report are now incorporated in that overall risk-based approach. But just really to highlight the governance process that exists around this, and that many of these issues that are coming out of the prudential report are known issues of a large project. They're indeed almost unavoidable just given the scale of what we're doing, and that the process that exists to ensure that they're adequately managed is relatively quite well sound. The two things that really stood out for me was the issue of continuity of services and ongoing operating costs as well. So there are a range of ongoing items there, many of which we are working through and actively are working through at the moment, but those two matters are ones that I think will have more to come out over the course of the coming months, particularly as we do start to enter into transitional arrangements and just what that means from a service standard, and then ongoing once the project is built and up and running and handover is complete, and what happens in terms of our desired servicing of that building and its ongoing costs to council, or potential ongoing savings as well through co-location. So I think it was a good report to receive at this time. It was interesting to be part of the audit committee last night, to hear their deliberations, and to reassure elected members that the process does have a very strong governance approach, and that many of those risks that have been identified are being incorporated into our overall risk-based approach to project management.
Thank you, Councillor. Just briefly from the Chair, both excellent speeches, and I totally concur. I don't want anyone here to think that this is an easy project and that this buttons down the risk. It absolutely does not. There's a great team of consultants over there waiting to address this if we need them to regarding the next couple of reports. It is a complex project, not simply because we're building a new thing. We're demolishing something, we're relocating staff, we're providing service in the interim period, we're selling land, we're promoting other development solutions. There's a lot of moving parts like this, and the governance framework is incredibly important to make that work as well as it can. And some of you have come along to the project executive group meetings, and it gives you insight into part of the governance framework, but not the entire body of it. So I did remind people who were at the committee meeting that it's not just structures and risk management reports or the other stuff that matters. It's having the right type of people on the job. It's talent that makes these things come together, and I think we've got a terrific team. I'm very confident we have the right people. Because those of you who've been involved in projects, I'm looking, the couple of you have, not everything goes to plan all the time, and you need to respond quickly sometimes. You have the right people able to do that. I really think that we have those people. So I commend the report to you, and know that it says list additional risks, manage those additional risks, and that is exactly what the audit committee has concurred with, and what I understand the CEO will do. One of those risks was temporary relocation opportunities, and I'd like to ask the CEO how our request to the town of Walkerville went, because I understand they met last night.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I'm pleased to report that I did attend the Walkerville Council meeting last night after the Audit Committee, and the Council has unanimously adopted a resolution for us to occupy their depot site at only $15,000 a year with operating costs. So I think from a financial perspective it meets our financial model extremely well, and there was some complimentary comments made about the two councils working collectively to assist in this, not least of which was supporting the local economy with coffee purchases.
Thank you. That's very reassuring because that's one of the gaps you'll see in the financial report. So that's great. Thank you. Any further debate on this item? Councillor Harrison.
A couple of questions first. That item 1 on page 56 is just what you answered, so I won't ask that again. But when we're doing this thing, so my two things I wanted to say. Once, in fact, I'll just go to question first, so then it's simple. On the Dean Newbury thing on page 110, my question is at 7.3.12, and it's simply there. And my question is, what does this sort of mean, how it works? And I assume it works, we're working on the assumption fixed interest rate of 4.4%. My question. Then if you go down a little bit, 7.33, then it talks about borrowings being greater than the 4.4 at the time of drawing down. So I'm not a financial person. Does that mean our loan's 4.4 or might be 4.4 and change?
Yeah, I think what the report is saying is that at the moment, if you've got a loan today, it'll be 4.4.
Right.
Be aware, elected members, there's a risk that when you go for it tomorrow, it might be greater. So are you able to handle a greater interest rate? So when we go to make that decision, that's what we need to contemplate. That's what the report is saying.
Well, I've got the same question there. So all the whole business we're doing at the moment is working on that 4.4, so next week it could change, is that?
So I'll refer to the director now. Or the manager, sorry.
Yeah, through the chair, that is the interest rate that's been used for all the forecasting of our borrowings. Like I said, if the interest rates move, they haven't for a number of months now. We're constantly in conversation with the LGFA, Local Government Authority, to make sure that we're abreast of what interest rate changes are coming, etc., to update the model as needed.
That's right. I understand then what's said. I just didn't understand how it was written there. My only other one, why I'm going to support it, I thought it's go back to, on page 56, the point 2, the item 2, which is the Mile End depot, and maybe we could end up having something with Walkerville and it might not happen. But it always worries me when I read something like that and look at all the rest, and I live in a world of trust, particularly the people around me and these characters that sit here. I have that trust. And when they tell me the Mile End depot is within minutes of the city of Prospect, I hope they're not on his push bike because it's a bit longer. And I'm just worried with that within minutes. And so that always makes me feel a bit, some other things are, oh, it's just right. And is it just right on that? But taking that on board, I think we're still going down the right track. We're still going the right way, and I'll be voting to support it.
Thank you. Councillor Barnetto.
Yes, yes. Just from my observations, attending some of the PEG meetings, and I feel that we do have a good team, and they're not frightened of robust discussion and robust questions. So that's always good, and robust answers. And the other thing I would just like reassurance, having been in a not so good place on January the 7th in 2006, with a certain other event happening where we stand. I just remember reading somewhere, I don't know, it's in some local government or somewhere, but just about making sure that our insurance cover is well and truly up to date and well and truly could cover if some other catastrophic event happens, and then we do have to go and camp on Prospect Oval or something. But can I just have some reassurance that we are looking at
Because they never caught the guilty one.
No.
Question not just for here, but also Town of Walkerville site. And you want to take notice, or?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm happy to confirm that via email to you. Certainly our insurances are kept up to date, and we're well aware of past experiences with the council, so we'll certainly confirm that for you in writing.
Thank you. Yeah. Any further debate? Councillor, Deputy Mayor Group, wish to sum up? Concludes the debate. All those in favour? Against? Again. All those in favour? Against? It is carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, next one is item 13.7, the Community Hub Library and Innovation Centre Concept Plans and Endorsement, Resource Design Development and Community Consultation. Recommendations on page 126, lengthy report, of course. The 3 recommendations are there for you, starting on page 126. Anybody wish to move this current report? Deputy Mayor, could you speak to it?
Sorry for everyone that had a bit off. Look, this is yet another one of those milestones in this project in terms of our design. We've been talking about design for a long time. I noticed in the design that's included in the papers and in the attachments are things that we've been talking about for a long time, and I think there was a general agreement at our last workshop that there would be things that would still change in a minor nature, but certainly conceptually this is the design that we're going with. I remain committed and excited for the project. I think it's a really fantastic thing that we're doing, and we're about to start here. I'm not sure there's a whole lot more to say because a lot of it's been said, but I would hope that we'd have unanimous support for our design tonight.
You got a second? Councillor Larwood, could you speak to it?
Agree with Councillor Group. If you look at the stages we've been through, the last 4 weeks, I think, or thereabouts, have been one of the most exciting because we've moved from blobs to a strong vision and starting to put the meat on the bones of what it's going to look like. And it's really exciting to see it coming along. It's exciting to see, not being part of the reference group, it's exciting to see what comes out of that in between discussions, and the next week we get presented with something that's changed significantly. So it's great to see it being shaped in the right direction. It's great to see the process is being contributed to by a wide range of people and led really strongly. And I look forward to seeing the team continue to work to bring it to a conclusion and to move it on to the next stage.
Thank you. And further speakers? We've got a whole set, so start at the left. Councillor.
Only very briefly, and to echo the views of other elected members, this has been a lot of work in the making. To thank everyone, our design team, our project management team, our staff involved in this process. A lot of thought has gone into it. We've agonised over it. We've discussed, I think, every element of this building several times. The interface with Vine Street Plaza is still one that potentially, is open for more consideration. But in terms of the overall design, in terms of the overall functionality and use case of this building, I'm really looking forward to the feedback we get, particularly to see if there is anything missed, because it's almost a challenge, I think. Have we been able to nail this to a point where we have ticked all the boxes, where it is ready and where it is going to benefit our community in the way that we all hope it will? So really looking forward to this next stage, looking forward to the feedback we receive, and really put the challenge out to anyone to identify anything we might have missed or anything we could do to make this even better, and to thank all those who have been involved over the past few months. It's been a lot of work, and we've got a really great product before us tonight.
Thank you. Councillor Stanton.
Yes, I was not able to do the workshop last week, and by the look of the results that we've got, I should not do workshops ever, because the result is fantastic. I'm really pleased with the way that design is coming along. I think there's a lot of detail in there that was missing some of the first designs. I think a lot of thought has been gone, has happened, as where things could be and how else we can do it. These sort of things, I think, are a little bit like a bolognese. The longer you leave them richer they get. Having said that, you don't leave them too long, otherwise they start to go off. But I think we've reached a wonderful point where there's a lot of detail, a lot of thought, and a lot of clever thinking about where things could really go rather than just pop it on a page and see if it flies. Really pleased with the design that we've got at the moment, and I'm happy to support it.
Thank you. Councillor Barnett.
Oh, sorry. All right then. I'm really pleased that we've gotten to the stage, enormous amount of hard work's gone in behind the scenes on this. We think we've been working hard as elected members, and that bears nothing to what our other staff and consultants have been. I just have one query, because I was actually able to look on my screen, PC screen at home, and see things in far more clearer detail than we sometimes see on the overhead projection. And just on attachment 10, the plan, and I noticed that in the corridor in the town hall that leads to the food and drink store, it's got council art display, 22 square metres, right by a window or a door. So I was just a bit concerned, because that is such a public area and open to the public. So I just had a query about that. So it doesn't need to be answered tonight, but if that could just be taken on board.
So you're talking about security of the artwork?
Yeah, yes, yeah.
We could always put the things you don't want there.
And insurance.
Yes, highly insured things.
Thank you.
Just near the scooter.
And look, I just felt that I should rise and thank not only the staff sitting here behind us, for their hard work and their response to us. We're really hard critics, and I think it's really important that we be that way in order to deliver for our community. And also to our own staff, who have also taken a lot from us and have responded really well as well. So thank you to all involved. I don't think our community are as harsh as us. I think that they are probably, there'll be a lot of really good input, and I'm really excited to see what they come up with, because I'm pretty sure there's lots of things that we haven't thought about that they as regular users will want input into. So $16 million worth of words, I'm pretty sure, have been said over the last 2.5 years. So this is it. We hand it over and let go of the hand and see what our community come back with. It's a very exciting stage.
Councillor Harris.
Just my question is, 2 and 3 are both separate, so it makes 18 million roughly? Or is the 1.4 part of the 16.4?
It's what's in the...
Sorry, Councillor, I'll take the question. Directly.
Through the chair, the 16.4 million is capital spent, and the 1.48 is professional fees on top of that.
So it's 18.
In absolute total, yep, it's good chair.
As I understand that the budgets have always been separated out like that.
Yes, that's correct. Through the chair, that's correct.
It's just when you see it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further speakers, Councillor Day?
Yeah, look, again, I'll probably concur with the rest of the fellow councillors just in regards to the success, I think, of the workshops and the involvement from the community. But I think it's great that we can hand it over to the community to get their final feedback. Look, I was concerned a little bit reading the paper earlier this week and saw the exterior of the Geelong Performing Arts Centre redevelopment, and I guess hopefully that's taken as feedback that we're obviously always looking for something unique, and we don't want to be a pale imitation of something that's already gone ahead. So I'm sure the community will have their 2 cents worth.
Okay, thank you. And just briefly from the chair, because everyone else has had a say, which I think is great feedback for the staff and the consultants. We've come a long way, and I'm really pleased with where it's sitting at the moment. Like the extra balcony, great. That looks good. And there's been some consolidation of some things and some freeing up of other space. This will continue to evolve, but they'll be in smaller ways and the exterior of the building will be the next, I think, major evolution. And I look forward to what the team come up with in terms of how that really beds in, following that concept which is before us tonight. We are already getting some good feedback around the concept, but I really look forward to us engaging with the community in a wholesome way. That's going to be quite challenging because a lot of people are not aware of the project. A lot of people can't read drawings, and they'll need some coaxing. The terrific prospect is a great opportunity to do it, so I really encourage the staff to have a bit of fun about how it's done, have some really big imagery, and there's an interior detail that's showing up in this concept here, which I think gives a flavour for some of the finishes inside. I think it's a terrific way to engage in a conversation with people, because they'll say, that's a stupid looking chair, or geez, I like that idea. It's a great way to draw them into a conversation. I think they've had a lot of fun with that. It's terrific. And I also want to reinforce to the public that we've had a community engagement process running for over a year now with our community reference group. I'm so pleased to see their feedback contained in this report. That is not a wholesome endorsement of what this is, but it's a really healthy check from their view about what they think works really well and where they think some of the challenges still lie. And I'm just so pleased that we've got a good bunch of people there. The day those groups have selected who those representatives will be, we haven't chosen them, and I think that we should just reinforce to the public that we've had that engagement all the way along from all those groups, and I'm really, really pleased that they've shown such a deal of interest to be involved for such a period of time on this project, because they easily could have walked away. Clearly, they sense that we value their opinion, and I think we genuinely all do. So, encourage you to see how to keep that engagement going as we go through the process. And congratulations to the team and the design team in particular for putting up with us, me perhaps more than others. Thank you, Councillor. And look forward to the next iterations of this, including the value management workshop. Lloyd, I'm sure that'll be fun. It will be fun. Thank you. So, no further speakers. Councillor, Deputy Mayor, do you wish to sum up all that?
Look, I'll sum it up very quickly to say that it's really exciting that we are all on the same page. I think this project has brought us together as a council, and we all share a very, very similar vision to what this wants to be. I think the commentary about the community reference group is really important. I've been part of that process over the last year or two. They are a group of very, very committed people. I'm hopeful that they can be part of the consultation process at Terrific, that they can actually be advocating for us on behalf of the project, because they own it just as much as we do right now. They've been involved at day one, shared our highs and shared our lows. So I think it's also good to acknowledge that. I'd also just like to thank particularly Tom, who week in, week out goes away and draws up something else for us to look into, and then goes away again and draws up more for us to look into, and so on and so forth. I think it's a real testament, and given that I'm sure we're not the only project that JPAE are working on, it's been really a good design outcome, and so look forward to some more of the detail that comes soon. There is a recommendation too, you'll see there is a slight increase in cost, particularly around the increased ceiling height for the property. I think it's really important. I'm very supportive of that. I think it will certainly give us a greater impact for what we're trying to do as part of the overall building, so I think that's really important. And can also just finally just acknowledge the Mayor's role in this, because the project executive group, who meets sometimes weekly, sometimes 3 times weekly, it feels, it's driven very much by the Mayor, and so he is very much on top of this project, so it's just worth acknowledging his role in this project as well. Certainly commend the motion to you.
Appreciate that. Thank you. That concludes the debate. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. That's a unanimous endorsement of where we're at the moment. CEO, challenge is over to you and the team now, obviously. And if you are here for that item tonight, as I know some of the people at the back are, thank you for your attendance tonight. We don't need to stay for the rest of the meeting, and you're hereby released if you have somewhere else you'd rather be. Thank you very much. Okay, we're on to item 14, the protocol. There are 3 reports that we can adopt on block. 15. I'll go through and see if anybody wishes to withdraw any of them. Item 15.1, the appointment of the acting CEO for a week or so. Anyone wish to withdraw that? Item 15.2, the repairs to Broadview Tennis Club reps. Harris. And 15.3, project update on the click. Anybody wish to draw that? No. Now, if someone moves then on block item 15.1, 15.3, Councillor Lee, and do I have a seconder? Councillor Evans, all those in favour? Against, that's carried unanimously, thank you. And Councillor Harris, do you wish to move that report to 15.2 or ask a question?
I'll ask a question, but I don't want to move it as it is. So,
Okay, so just your brief question.
my question is on page 165, where the executive summary is at the point. Well, it's not the point anyway. The second paragraph, the Broadview Tennis Club does not have any identified asbestos present according to the qualified professional asbestos monitoring company contracted by council back in 2014 or 2012. That must have been the case, and it's not now the case. And the fences on the tennis courts are chock-a-block up to the asbestos in that little building alongside. So it does have identified asbestos, not in the club room, but it doesn't say that. It says the Broadview Tennis Club. And that building touched, and not to my knowledge, I know that no Charters or anyone similar has not gone down and changed the register to see where it has been physically changed, cut up, done all those other things. So I'm not happy with the point 2, so I wouldn't be, or not paragraph 2, sorry.
Paragraph 2, okay. So point made and obviously taken on notice. Was there a question in there? You just make a mistake.
Well, that's it. I can't support it because that paragraph's not true.
Yeah. So I haven't moved it. No one's moved it yet. So your point's made. And you haven't asked a question, so there's nothing to respond to, Director. Do I have a mover?
If it's not right.
To receive and note the report.
Well, that's not true.
We should speak to it. I have a seconder. Councillor Evans, we should speak to it.
If I can maybe just ask the Director a quick question.
Sure.
Director, could you just confirm the information that's contained within the report, particularly with regard to asbestos, and give us any further information you feel might be relevant?
Through the chair, it's true that the asbestos register that we provided or that we made reference to was from 2015. May I suggest that an alternative or an additional motion or point could be raised that the Council Administration provides a further, not necessarily a further report, but provide a memo to elected members on the status of the current register, and if it is out of date, a process of updating that register. Because I'm not sure why it hasn't been updated since that time. Happy to take that research.
Thank you, Director.
That's good, yeah.
Now, Councillor Harris, back to you. Did you wish to speak any further or to move an amendment?
Yeah, look, I move amendment because I believe the staff's done a good job. I just don't think it's right. I'd like to move amendment that the whole lot stays, but where we've got the second paragraph, I put a whole wriggle there. I don't think there's a number underneath it. The Broadview Tennis Club does not have any identified asbestos present according to the qualified student. I'd like to see that come out and perhaps put in there, staff will continue, and unfortunately I'm thinking on my feet now, staff will look at the situation, and I will say the name of the place so you know, the building that is connected. If I'm just sort of saying it, you see how perhaps to put it.
Yeah, I'm working on it.
Yeah. The staff check the building that is connected to it, so that's part of the toilet block, part of for the Lions Club that uses, is where the asbestos has been cut and thing, and it's had to be cut so that they could widen the tennis club. So the register might one day be fixed, but I need the register for that particular building to be clarified.
Can I suggest keep it simple, that staff to investigate the condition of the asbestos contained in the adjacent buildings and update the register
accordingly. Yes. I'm then happy. Oh, someone else moved it.
Hang on. Let's get us up to have a look at it. Update the register accordingly. Just change the condition on the asbestos to the condition of the asbestos. So, Councillor Harris, as a potential amender, are you happy with those words?
Yes, I'd just like to add one more bit in the same thing.
Yeah.
And if not in a good condition, that it's repaired, same as we had previously. Accordingly, if it needs removal or repair.
Actions are required to undertake such work.
Yes. Then I'm happy with it.
Actions are required then to undertake that work. Okay, now I'll ask the mover and seconder if you're happy to incorporate it. Councillor Rebecca.
I am happy to incorporate.
Thank you. And
Yes, happy to incorporate it. Yes.
I'll see you leave the meeting. All those happy to incorporate that? Against thus incorporated becomes a motion. Anything more, Councillor?
Yeah. So now I'd like to just very briefly speak on the motion. Look, it might sound small, and when we do go there and see, you'll measure it's not that much a big area, but it's on a sports thing, and all asbestos, many people try and tell you different, all asbestos kills. It's not a good product, and that's the end of the story of what it does to you. And people can say it's in good nick, which it can be, and all that, but the end result, if we can get it, I think I brought this up 2 years ago, if we have an opportunity to make a place safe, because the balls hit it, everything hits it, kids climb on it, I think this is the way we can go and follow up getting rid of all asbestos in our city. So I recommend people accept it.
Thank you. Any further debate on this one? No. Councillor DeBacker, you need to sum up. That concludes the debate. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Thank you. All right, so next item on the agenda is the council diary. Vibes in Vine Street every Friday. So be there or be square, and terrific prospect on the 15th of January. General business of an urgent nature. Is it any general business of an urgent nature? No. Then confidential items, there being two, the Australia Day Citizen and I will take this in parts so I can catch up here. So the order to exclude part one, so I'm happy to move part one.
Happy to move.
Councillor Evans, wish to speak to us?
I'm okay.
A seconder for part one. Councillor Stanley, wish to speak to us? Any further debate? All those in favour? Yes, carried unanimously. So Councillor Larwood appears to be